Welcome to the presentation, Acculturation of First-Generation Immigrant Children and Youth, Insights from a Meta-Analysis. I am Debora Maehler from the Geses Leibniz Institute for the Social Science, Germany. Given that migration flows have increasing worldwide in recent years, particularly the number of young people affected by migration and forcible displacement, 5 key organizations remarked in a joint call to action that we need data and measures to support the integration of the target group into receiving countries. In this sense, the present work aims to aggregate empirical findings on the acculturation of young people affected by migration or forcible displacement. Now you can see the short agenda for this contribution. And we go to the concepts used. Acculturation is defined here as the process of psychological and socio-cultural adaptation which young immigrants undergo after arriving in a new cultural setting, different from the one in which he or she was initially socialized. So immigrants' acculturation have been measured using various domains, such as linguistic skills, social contact, structural placement in the education system, and or identity. This contribution focuses on the identity domain to capture the acculturation of young immigrants, and the most used model in research to identity among children and adolescents with migration backgrounds is the ethnic identity development approach from Finney. So Finney defined ethnic identity as a construct that refers to one's identity of self as a member of an ethnic group. Finney's identity approach focuses on the development of ethnic identity, or rather on identification with the culture of origin. Please see the left side of the figure. However, as the research on the acculturation stream suggests, please see the right side of the figure, the maintenance of the culture of origin and adaptation to the receiving country is structured orthogonally. And immigrant young can identify with both the culture of origin and the culture of the new residence country. So the cultural identity of young immigrants consider the degree of commitment to their country culture of origin and their country of residence. For example, Syrian children which immigrated to Germany can identify with Syrian cultural values and traditions and have a Syrian ethnic identity. Whereas for native children born and socialized in Germany, ethnic identity would mean that they identify with German cultural values and traditions. Furthermore, Syrian children may also identify with Germany and have a respective German national identity. Yet, by German natives, ethnic and national identities overlap. The present work focuses on the following research questions. How strong young immigrants identify with their culture of origin? How strong young immigrants identify with their residence country? And to what degree does young immigrants' identification with their culture of origin differ from identification with the residence country? And finally, How and to what extent is identity related to the basic demographic background indicators such as gender and age, and also to migration-related factors such as age at migration, duration of residence, culture of origin, and country of residence. The meta-analysis was based on articles published during a 30-year period. The target group was first-generation young immigrants and refugees aged 19 years and younger. The search for articles was conducted in August 2018 in English language databases such as ERIC, PUB, Psych, or also PsycInfo. The selection and coding procedure followed the PRISMA model. So the PRISMA flow chart outlines the number of identifying, included, excluded records, as well as the regions for exclusions. So the searches yielded a working sample of 3,636 articles, which constitute the broad basis for further selection and coding. As depicted in the first screening, duplicates were excluded. In a second step, exclusions included empirical research with divergent target groups. Not first-generation immigrants or not within the specific age range, as well as qualitative studies were excluded. All the studies that did not measure the defined identity concept, but rather, for example, linguistic or behavioral adaptation were excluded. Or studies that failing to report arithmetic means for the identity scale. So from their 24 included publications, 35 effect signs could be extracted for the meta-analysis. That means that in addition to the full sample, some publications, for example, provide information differentiated by gender or culture of origin. So as summarized here, most of the included studies use medium sample sizes. Overall, the publications use data collected in 9 countries, for example, in the US or Canada. Regarding the individual characteristics of the participants, gender was about equally distributed in most samples. Sample participants were adolescents, and the overall mean age was 15 years. The young participants had arrived on average with 9 years. The average duration of residence in the host country was 6 years. And most participants immigrated from East Asian countries or countries from the former Soviet Union. So that was a brief overview. Now, the results from random effect models. You can briefly see the calculations. Let's go back. Show that young immigrants identify moderately with culture of origin. Young immigrants identify weak with the residence country. And the identification with the culture of origin was higher than the identification with the residence country. The moderation analysis show an effect of gender, duration of residence, culture of origin, as well as country of residence. So for instance, it can be highlighted that females show the greatest identification with the culture of origin. The longer immigrants staying in the country of origin, the stronger they identify with the respective country. And particularly immigrants from African countries identify higher with the residence country than with their culture of origin. Whereas the identification of immigrants from East Asian countries with the culture of origin was higher than the residence country. So regarding the main findings that young immigrants identified moderately with their culture of origin, and the identification with their residence country was by comparison weaker, I like to discuss the following aspects. Maintaining a commitment to the culture of origin might be a central psychological resource for coping with immigration-related challenges and might provide a sense of control and meaningfulness. See, for example, Celebi and colleagues. In terms of the acculturation approach from Bury, the identification or the identity of young immigrants would correspond to an integration and separation profile. And furthermore, recent studies focusing on second-generation immigrants suggest that in today's super diversity Western cities and school environments, national identity is increasingly broken down to the level of local identity and a sense of belonging to a city. See, for example, Krul. So this will also be the case for first-generation immigrants. Regarding moderator effects, the meta-analysis showed that girls and older adolescents reported a strong identification with the culture of origin than did boys and younger adolescents and children. The later age group reported a strong identification with the residence country. So that results might be related to gender-specific socialization experiences and to the resulting lack of opportunities to integrate into the new environment. Here you can see the discussion also by Humana, Taylor, and colleagues. Finally, I like to highlight some challenge in migration and integration research coming up in the present work. Previous research has been based mainly on mixed immigrant generation groups. Therefore, it is very difficult to derive insights for the integration of new immigrant groups like the refugees. Another challenge is the operationalization of an immigrant, which varies greatly in the publications. Finally, the present work detected a poor data reporting. Many of the studies failed to report core demographic information on the samples, like gender, immigrant generation, or also age of arrival. So if you are interested in more details, please visit our discussion section or see the referent publication. Here the references for this presentation. And thank you very much.